And Kiguta, and we're bringing you news on the go. Our eyes are peeled across the country as we continue to follow events both in politics and other sectors of the Republic. Tonight, rather this morning, look at me, this morning, my guest in studio to my immediate right is Samson Cherargei, who is the Nandi Senator. Next to him is Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Senator for Makueni. Next to him is Odoyo Owidi. He's a political analyst, and a little later we'll be joined by Oliver Kipchumba, also a political analyst. We've got so much to talk about, obviously following the political happenings this week, including the announcement of the formation of a People's Assembly by NASA leader Raila Odinga. Listen to what he said yesterday.
We announced today the establishment of a People's Assembly. The People's Assembly is the vehicle through which we will exercise the solemn duty of restoring democracy, constitutionalism, and the rule of law. The People's Assembly will be a broad-based forum consisting of elected leaders and the leadership of other sectors of society, in particular workers, civil society, religious leaders, women, youth, and economic interest groups. We will be announcing the date and program of the Assembly's inaugural convention in the coming days. The People's Assembly will continue to exist until a legitimate presidency is restored.
And I want to kick us off immediately with Senator Kilonzo Jr. So, from what we hear, it sounds pretty much like a replication of what is right now the constitutionally recognized legislative arm of government. How would you describe the role and the functions of the People's Assembly?
Yeah, thank you, Anne, for inviting us this morning, although you still think it's night.
My life. Thanks for that one shot. So mature.
Yeah, well, the sun has risen.
You are so mature. Have I told you that?
Thanks. But allow me, before I comment on that, to pass my condolences on air to Bishop Korir. He's a very astute gentleman.
Right.
Who defended injustices right from the time I was a teenager. I remember him condemning the Moi regime, and I found it absolutely impressive of a man of his caliber to have been so brave when most Kenyans would not even dare speak about Moi at the time, and also to wish the candidates success in their exams. Let me go to the People's Parliament. I don't know whether you know, maybe you just hang around this neighborhood for too much. If you go to town, somewhere near City Hall, there's something called Bunge la Wananchi.
Right.
So the People's Parliament.
So you're saying this is a Bunge la Wananchi?
Yeah, in Kiswahili is Bunge la Wananchi. It's now transformed into something maybe much larger. You're asking whether it is a replacement. It cannot be a replacement because it composes of elected leaders, those who want to participate. It composes of as many people. It's an amorphous group of people. It's a way of articulating. It's not actually strange. What Raila is doing is possibly just replicating what happened in Tahrir Square in Egypt, what happened in Tunisia, what has happened in many other jurisdictions where people find an avenue other than the already recognized avenues to ventilate their issues. And therefore, it's not something absolutely strange. Raila has not reinvented the wheel about the People's Parliament. I've said it's Bunge la Wananchi, and the one in town has a speaker. They don't have a mess, but it's that where people of various categories of Kenyans come and ventilate. Sometimes you might think they will fight, but Bunge la Wananchi in town is an avenue where people say what they want. They speak freely. So I think this is a sort of thing that Raila is contemplating. I cannot say that and don't ask me the legality of it. because I will not tell you, don't ask me about the morality of it, because it's not about that, but ask me about the logic of having a people's parliament.
No,
then I will explain
but you must be asked about that, number one, because you're a lawyer, number two, because especially for a body that has been set in place on the premise of a pseudo-moral question, talking about whether the current, National Assembly is serving its purpose, and talking about legitimacy, that's a pseudo-moral issue. So because you have drawn the parallel of Tahrir Square, and we saw how those events unfolded, it sounds very clear that the path then is to follow the revolutions that took the Arab Spring, which was, the argument is still out there whether that was positive for these countries. Many of them have not yet found their way back to a functioning democracy. Is that the NASA plan for Kenya?
Don't make a conclusion. You already made a conclusion, even before you build a premise.
What conclusion have I made? You've talked about Tahrir Square.
Yes. But
and we saw how Tahrir Square
I've talked about the model. And you've talked about what ended up being a revolution and how those countries have not recovered. That's called a conclusion. We haven't reached that stage yet.
It's based on fact. It's based on exactly what happened in those countries.
That's what I'm saying, that you cannot go to the conclusion before you build a premise. The premise is that this is not a new invention. It's something that has happened all over the world. The conclusions are not the same, because what happened in the Arab Spring and in Tunisia and other countries is not what happened in Egypt. The point I'm making is this, and it's come from this premise, that there's a section of this country, Ankiguta, where you have people's representation. And it now seems the narrative is that those minorities where Makueni that I represent, irrespective of what we think, the majority will still add voters. That narrative created by Jubilee has then fostered this parallel thinking that people can go out and ventilate their issues, because we are now told that since my colleague here and his friends, honchos, we will never get our way in the National Assembly and Senate because they have numbers. Then you then create that avenue for people to be ventilating, because those people out there who belong to trade unions, either workers or whatever organization, rely on people like Mutula Kilonzo Jr. to articulate their issues. But if we have created a narrative that since we have taken power, we have taken power the way we want, we'll create an election the way we want, we'll control parliament when we want, we will create a calendar for this country the way we want. The only thing that, let me tell you, Jubilee has not done is dictate when the sun is going to come out. Otherwise, strictly speaking, we are living under the mercies of Jubilee.
Right, and I think there are things to respond to in terms of how the legislative arm has carried itself out and whether it has been independent as it should be, and there's definitely argument in that, but I can't let you slide on your model of Tahrir Square, etc., because the premise, given your premise, if people do not feel they have a legitimate place where they want to ventilate their views, then they will create one. But what I am saying post that is that we have seen on the premise of that model where it has been carried out in other countries, it led to a certain conclusion. So on that note, first I want to bring you in, Samson, in your perspective. Mutula has made it very clear, and it's perhaps the very first clear admission by NASA that they're following an Arab Spring model, which started with Tahrir Square. It is. That's exactly what it is.
What is called admissions? What I've just given
Senator,
you an analogy.
Senator, it's what it is. You said your words. You had your time. Let's allow you to respond.
Thank you. And first and foremost, let me extend my deepest condolences to my bishop, Cornelius Korir. He's my bishop, and for he was a peace ambassador, and we have so many. He stood in 2007, 2008, and even he have been pushing for resolve of peaceful along Kerio Valley, where Senator Murkomen comes from. and he has been a good educationist. So my deepest condolences to the people of North Rift, and I think in honor, we have resolved in North Rift that we remain peaceful in honor of Bishop Cornelius Korir, and also to extend my best wishes to all the candidates who are sitting for national examinations, and we hope the ministry has put in place, and even the Ministry of Interior, all the necessary mechanisms to ensure. Number two, I saw Raila Odinga talking about People's Assembly, and I realized maybe his memory does not serve him right, because Bunge la Mwananchi has been existing. But the Constitution, yeah, that is right. The law is very clear.
Well, Mutula has said the same.
Article 1(2) is that some of these, what he was saying is we already have Senator Mutula representing my colleague in Senate.
Yeah.
And the issue is, why should you call for People's Assembly while Akina Senator Mutula here are boycotting Senate proceedings, even the national MPs, even the National Assembly? So the issue is the Constitution itself, when you look at what Raila is saying, is behaving as if he was not in the Yes campaign, pushing for this Constitution to be, is talking as if this Constitution is a stranger to. But we are aware some of these issues that there will be revolution. I take a lot of reservations when he talks about Tahrir Square. Revolution will never happen in Kenya. We already have one of the best progressive constitutions in this country.
Can you be certain of that?
Yeah, we have. I am. Because when you are telling us the issue is they are raising is because their narrative is to build something that, you know, they want to portray to international friends that they have, that this country is dysfunctional in its obligations as a foreign state. And some of these issues, when you see they are raising with a narrative that they will show the outside world that this country is not functioning. So what will happen? The international partners and international friends will say, let us have a dialogue. And we know the narrative is, for the end of the day, they want a Nusumukata government, and that is what they are building along that, because the People's Assembly is, we already have a constitution which Mutula Kilonzo represents the interests of Makueni residents, I represent the interests of Nandi residents.
There's already an assembly.
Yeah, there is a platform where those issues can be discussed, and even Bunge la Mwananchi has been existing a long time ago. So these are some of the issues that I think
but you know, I think and I wonder whether equating what Raila called for to the Bunge la Mwananchi, which we all know outside Bata, is really a gross underestimation of what they're calling for, and a misreading of the political temperature, especially when you talk about the fact that a revolution will never happen in Kenya. And I'm not in any way trying to advocate that one should, but is it a lack of sensitivity on the part of Jubilee to realize where the country is headed and how people feel about the events, be that based on fact or whatever, or manipulation? Is it a misreading of the season?
No, we are not. In fact, I want to assure the country that under the good hands of His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto and Jubilee, the country is headed in the right direction. Because we just have an election, we have now started an healing process, and even the president himself admitted in Bomas that the dialogue might not happen, but he wants we exhaust all avenues that the Constitution provides for. So in this essence, what we are telling is that the country, it is good to have such a conversation, but what Raila imagine is, because he wants the Bunge la Mwananchi to assemble, he thinks that the police will now start arresting people by assembling maybe in 10, or restricting their freedom of association or freedom of expression. No one has tried to stifle some of those rights, and therefore when he brings this issue, he wants to build up a momentum of, maybe we are aware some of the demands are civil disobedience, and some of those things have even some of the demonstrations that he's calling for, but they have every Kenyan has a right to freedom of expression, association, and therefore what he was imagining is, because the police will come and arrest people who are maybe sitting somewhere in the corner. But I want to assure you the country is headed in the right direction, and we are continuing to transform this country into a model country across East Africa.
Okay, I want to just expand my panel now to my political analysts, and let me start by introducing at the far end of the table Oliver Kipchumba, who's just joining us now, a political analyst. Good morning, and thank you for coming in. And next to him is Odoyo Witi, who is a political analyst. So Odoyo, I want to begin with you. your thoughts on the People's Assembly, and if you would pick it up from how the current legislature has carried itself out. In Jubilee has been very clear that a tyranny of numbers is nothing to shy away from. The tyranny comes from the people to begin with, but there are questions as to whether that is what the Constitution envisaged the legislature to be, and in what way it should exert independence, even if it comes from the majority party. Your thoughts on that, and what could have led to this formation of a quote People's Assembly?
And it is important to know the genesis of the People's Assembly. It is also important to recall the very reason why Raila Odinga and his NASA brigade wanted to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. There are definitely issues they wanted sorted out. And when they discovered that Jubilee did not only just rig their way into winning, they also ensured that they manufactured majority in both assemblies. It is important that they create a scenario where they can have people who talk on behalf of the people of Kenya. Because the assemblies we have today in both Senate, the assemblies we have today in both Senate and the National Assembly will never for any time talk for the people of Kenya. They will talk about Jubilee and how Jubilee can entrench itself in power. So in his own wisdom, he thought, to restore democracy and constitutionalism, it is important that we create an assembly that can talk on behalf of the people of Kenya on all the issues they have with the government. You know, in Kenya today we have had issues, nurses have had issues, doctors, teachers, business people, and everyone else who pays tax in Kenya have issues with this government. And he has discovered this will never be discovered under a Jubilee regime. So where are they going to be discussed? In the People's Assembly.
Will the People's Assembly, and there's always this, it's a semantics question, but it speaks to a political issue where either side of the divide wants to paint itself as the custodian of we the people, the first lines of the Constitution. So when you say the People's Assembly and we talk about its membership, and you've talked about the constitutionally recognized National Assembly only speaking for Jubilee, won't the People's Assembly purely speak for NASA?
Now, let's talk about the legitimacy first of this very constitutionally set assembly of the National Assembly of Kenya. We in NASA believe very well that this assembly, majority of those people were manufactured by the computer. We believe so. So if that be the case, how are we going to have a People's Assembly that represents the majority of Kenyans? We can only get it by forming a People's Assembly. We will also debate issues. In fact, sometimes when the National Assembly will bring their verdict on issues that they will consider having debated. Like, for example, the amendments that was going on. We would have discussed that in the People's Assembly and would have said, this is the verdict we would have come with if we were the ones in the National Assembly. So it may sound very nice, but we believe that the Parliament now, the majority in there is not a legitimate majority. It is a manufactured majority. And it is believable if we had IEBC do a transparent election in which Mutula Kilonzo Jr. from his Makueni could trace his vote to Bomas of Kenya, could at 12 in noon see the voter turnout, so he knows that the time for them to steal more votes is limited because the voter turnout is only this much. We would have not gone through all this.
Okay.
On 28th of July this year, Chebukati came out and told Kenyans, we now have KIEMS kits, which will give us voter turnout every 3 hours. And only 5,300 Kenyans cannot be identified by the KIEMS kits. And he also said about the irreducible minimum that NASA gave, that now they will give Kenyans voter turnout every 3 hours. When this did not happen, we smelled a rat. We knew this is not happening, so that at the end of the voting, they can now doctor the papers. And this time they did it very nicely. After doctoring the papers, they use now those papers to make entries into the system, so that it is difficult to use the papers against the system to see that nothing really happened. So as that election that was nullified, this one was more opaque, was more unverifiable than the other one. In fact, I can tell you as we sit here, that this election will also be nullified, because I know a Kenyan or Kenyans will go to court. Okay. And you also notice in Raila Odinga's statement, when he was launching the People's Assembly, he also said that the People's Assembly will only exist until a legitimate president is in place.
And we'll talk about that. Oliver, your response. Let Oliver speak first.
Well, thank you, Anne. First and foremost, I want to join the people of this country, the Catholic members of this country, and all faithfuls in passing my condolences for my bishop, the Right Reverend Korir. And secondly, I want to disagree with Mr. Otoyo. When we talk of manufacturing leaders, I want to believe also then Senator Kilonzo was manufactured, because we have assemblies in this country who have majority NASA members. Were they too manufactured? We must be clear in our minds if this manufacturing was only in Jubilee and it didn't happen in CORD, and how they attained the majority. And the other point we must address is, if we want to ascribe to democracy, which is the rule of the majority, and the minority must have their say. And one of the positions that I do not understand when we talk of the People's Assembly, it begs the question, the people who are we acting in whose interest are we acting at the county level and at the National Assembly level? Because those are the People's Assembly, because it is the people who have mandated the members of parliament and the members of the county assembly to act on their behalf. And by saying the People's Assembly, outside, when you talk of the People's Assembly, somebody will be thinking, are we talking about Bunge la Mwananchi? Because when you look at Bunge la Mwananchi, it has everybody across the board. If today Mutula Kilonzo, the senator of Makueni, decides to join the People's Assembly at Wabera Street, we have members of civil society, we have Kenyans of goodwill there. Are we expanding that Bunge la Mwananchi, or we are inventing another one? And then where is it placed in law? Are we creating things outside the law? If so, who will regulate the agenda or the things to be talked about in the Bunge la Mwananchi? I think, with all honesty, NASA must tell us the truth. This is an exit strategy. They just fell short of telling us that, you know what, we have abandoned all these things.
You feel it's going to fizzle out naturally? It will
fizzle out, and this is the way it will happen. Unless it is a strategy of exporting violence and other uncouth practices, political practices. How will you tell us that I will have a Bunge la Mwananchi which will have no effect in the development of the certain place it is? A good example is this. What will a Bunge la Mwananchi help today in Kisumu, and we have the county assembly in Kisumu? What will the people in the Bunge la Mwananchi, in the People's Assembly be discussing? How different will they be from the issues being discussed inside the assembly?
And I want us to talk about the function proper, the structure as envisaged in this People's Assembly and its findings. Is this an extra constitutional means of engagement? Very shortly, but let's just get a reaction from across the country, and let's start with Eldoret now. John Wanyama is standing by for us this morning. Good morning to you. What is the reaction of area residents to this formation of a so-called People's Assembly?
A very good morning to you, Anne, and here in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. Yesterday's Raila Odinga's announcement or formation of whatever he said yesterday, it has not really created a big impact here. It doesn't have any impact in Uasin Gishu County, because residents here are saying that they have already moved on. The election is over, so they don't want again to go back to election mode or to go to demonstrations. Where I'm standing, Anne, I'm at the Uasin Gishu County Assembly, where I would like to talk to a few MCAs to tell us their views. What do they think about yesterday's Raila Odinga's announcement? Mheshimiwa, if I can start with you, Huruma MCA, if I can start with you, my first question to you. Do you think the Raila's message yesterday is important and we are heading to the right direction?
Hiyo message ya PM jana ikuwa important hata kidogo. Ile ombi inaweza kuwa naye kwa Raila Odinga. Uchaguzi umeisha, yeye tunamheshimu sana, yeye tunamuomba, yeye wafuasi wake aweze kuongea nao, aeleze uchaguzi walichelewa sababu wakuchukua hiyo nafasi ya kuingia kwa uchaguzi. Saa hizi hata hizi namba zinaongewa juu yake haizina umuhimu yoyote, sababu si kusema yule mtu akupiga kura alikuwa apigie Raila Odinga, na angekuwa yeye anaona angeshinda hiyo uchaguzi, kwa nini akuingia tarehe 26? Kwa hivyo ni baada ya miaka 5 sasa ndio sisi Kenya iendelee, economy imerudi chini, watu wanataka kurudi kazi. Tuache mambo ya siasa, tufanye kazi. Na pia NCCK au mapastors na nini, na waomba wacheni kuleta confusion Kenya. Hakuna mahali positions zitakirietiwa zingine. Ile kiketi ilikuwa inapiganiwa ni kiketi ya president. Hakuna mambo ya prime minister, deputy prime minister za kazi gani. Zile ilikuja ile wakati na hiyo ilipitwa na wakati. Saa hizi tutaki kusikia hata mambo ya kucreate viketi zingine. Sisi tunajua president na deputy president. Hiyo peke yake, hatutaki viketi zingine. Watu wakae kwa amani, watu wapendane vile President Uhuru alitueleza na deputy president. Hiyo ndio tunatafuta. Kenya ni amani na sisi hatuna ugomvi na mtu yoyote. Sisi tupendane, kabila zote, iwe Muluo, iwe Muluya, Mkalenjin, Mkikuyu, sisi wote ni kitu kimoja. Sisi wote ni jamii moja.
Thank you. Majority Leader was in Gishu County, Mr. Lagoi.
Yes.
Your views on Honorable Raila's remarks yesterday?
Thank you very much. Kenya is going into some hard times as we speak. And these hard times is just created by someone who wants power by force. NASA went to court and the presidential election was nullified, and they were given directions to hold elections in the next 60 days. On 26th of October 2017, IEBC announced that elections must be done. Jubilee agreed to that, they campaigned and went to elections. Raila withdrew himself. That ruling was in his favor, was not in our favor as Jubilee. After the elections, Jubilee has been declared by IEBC, not any other person. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto have been declared by IEBC as president-elect and the deputy president-elect. Not a kangaroo commission or any other person, by a commission that has been mandated to do so. So we are telling this to Raila Odinga. Kindly, if you love Kenyans, if you love Kenya, as you always say, kindly, just have that courtesy, calm down, calm your supporters down, and let this country move forward. The story is of let us negotiate, let us talk, like NCCK are saying, are not founded in any law. It is just something creation. Because you are supporting someone, now you go there with a collar of a church and say, the church have said. If today we take Karanja and the team, a few of them who are there, even their own crowds, their own people who they preach to them and the church will disown them, because what they are creating is more confusion than confusion.
We should not go there. They are not here to defend themselves, I think.
Even Raila is not here to defend himself, but as leaders, we are just telling them it is not right the way they are taking Kenya, because we are just in a crisis. Why create another crisis? Why dig another hole to do the other, to make sure that you fill the other hole? We are telling this to Raila. If you love Kenya, kindly leave those stories aside. Your yesterday's statement is so straight to causing chaos in this country, and we are not going there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking to Citizen TV. And as you've heard them clearly, they are saying that that message that Raila said yesterday didn't have that any impact in this region. And maybe something we can just mention here is that residents here, especially those who are doing business, especially that for fish, they are saying that they are not getting fish, especially from Kisumu and those environments. So fish in Eldoret is becoming a commodity that each and every person is looking for. Another thing is that farmers from Elgeyo Marakwet, some of them who takes their farm produce, and remember this is the time for harvesting passion fruits in some of Elgeyo Marakwet parts, they are taken to Uganda. So they are complaining that those who buy these fruits from Uganda have not really come into the country because of political situation. So they are praying and hoping that this political heat can just end any time from now, so that they can continue with their work, so that they can give their children food and they take their children to school. And
Thanks, Wanyama, for that. And you know, just a side note, what you're saying on the economy is important, because that's how the slowdown happens, when small businesses, you know, cannot flourish, when you don't have that free movement of trade and of persons. So it may sound small, but it is an important pointer. But I want to return to you, Mutula, because we're talking about the membership of the Assembly, and I think you've heard the views of the panelists in terms of its composition, who will comprise of it. Obviously, we've heard elected leaders, civil society, etc. But is that open to all? Is it come one, come all? Or will it be a more selected, kind of precise group? And how will it go about running its functions? Mimicking completely what we see in the National Assembly? Will you elect its leaders? How does it work?
First and foremost, I've said it's amorphous. Means it can take any shape. It can accommodate anybody. It's not fasting, last out of last in, first out. I believe that the People's Assembly must pick its own leadership. I believe its agenda will be dictated by the agendas of the day. Now, I just want to bring you up to speed, and maybe you know, about the sort of things we are talking about. Look at what Ireland has attempted to do in terms of breaking away from the Great Britain. Look at what is happening in Spain, where Catalina is complaining. Why are they complaining? They're complaining because... Catalonia, yes. They're complaining because the bulk of the money is paid to Madrid, but the money doesn't come back to Catalonia. So they are saying, and yet they are not receiving services, and that's why they are clamoring for independence. So what I'm simply saying is that the agendas that are affecting common mwananchi are the agendas that will be at the People's Assembly. Let me explain something about legitimacy. Senator and myself here, my colleague, represent the people under Article 1 and our delegated responsibility. Now, the sovereign of this republic can exercise those powers in two ways. One, directly, or two, by delegation.
Right.
Now, if the person who elected me feels that they cannot get their voice heard, they will exercise that power directly. Now, that is the same position where they feel they cannot participate in an election to vote where their voice is not being heard. It's the same thing. So directly means they now sit in an assembly, they say, concerning matter issue X, nurses strike. This is how we want our issues addressed.
But isn't that why then we have a constitution that also, that's the people of, we the people still subscribed to, and said that if we're not happy with the way you're exercising your delegated authority, then we can recall you.
Let me explain. You know, the constitution comes in as an order. It's the principle of Thomas Hobbes, where he says when there's lack of law and order, life was short, nasty, and brutal, because there's no order. So you pick a document and you say, okay, these are the rules we are going to play by. These rules are called the Constitution. We have agreed that these rules will bind me and my colleague from Jubilee in the same way. But what is happening in this country is that it appears as if this constitution favors the people in power, the people who have control of numbers, the people who for some reason came to Kenya and have more children than the rest of us. Their population is large, and therefore, for some strange reason, these people have their rights to eat on the table before, even if we're on the table, we have to eat breadcrumbs. That's what I'm talking about. That thing that appears as safe, the rule of law does not apply to me and does not apply to my colleague simply because his coalition is in power, is what creates an avenue for people to start ventilating.
And you do not believe that within the same constitution, and I am really wondering whether NASA is saying that the constitution has failed, that there are also avenues to amend that constitution?
That's what I was coming to. Now, assuming that you have a situation like what the bishops have come up with, and the majority leader from Uasin Gishu County Assembly talks about it, and he says bishops should not bring out such a conversation. That is the sort of conversation that of proposals by the bishop that will be part and parcel of an agenda of the People's Parliament means that what CORD was doing in 2016, before it was interfered with by the Jubilee-led IEBC then, the Okoa Kenya initiative, you then start something called a referendum of sorts. And by the way, I'm trying to be very, very cautious about many other even worse concepts of somebody sitting in Homa Bay thinking, why do I subscribe to the nation called Kenya? You know why you subscribe to the nation called Kenya? Where you bring a community. I've used Spain, where you have 5 states where people speak different languages but agree to be led by as a nation. Do you envision a situation, Ann Kiguta, where somebody says, you know, I'm not interested in being part of Kenya? Those are some of the issues that might even be addressed. So what I'm simply saying is that we subscribe to a constitution. We all thought that the constitution will bring equality, rule of law. If I ask something, if Raila Odinga says that there's something wrong with IEBC, we don't call him Mganga. Is it Mganga? Do they use the word Mganga?
Yes, I believe that is the word.
And the president, Mganga. And then the
or is it Mchawi?
Mchawi.
Sorry,
and then the president
Mganga.
in his acceptance speech repeats the word witchcraft. You understand? That Raila Odinga can be branded Mchawi. And the president repeats those statements. And by the way...
Okay, there's a lot that you're saying that I want to probe shortly, especially still on the path, even if you, and I think both sides of the divide have said that the constitution has errors. And come on, we passed it a while ago. There's definitely confusion time to, you know, reform it. But even that reform of it can happen within a constitutionally laid out procedure. And that's what I'm grappling with in terms of the NASA game plan. But let's just get some news in. We want to take you to a presser that's being held right now from the Ministry of Trade. They're talking about the World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. The KEPSA CEO is speaking now. Let's listen in.
Improvement every year has meant long nights, a lot of work, but a lot of coordination and very, very good working relationship between especially the Ministry of Industry and Trade led by the CS Eden and ourselves, but also the constant engagement at the Presidential Roundtable at least twice or 3 times a year. 2 things that stand up for me this time. I know many times the media and others have asked us, so what does this really mean for that small business person? And so I'll pick 2 areas of the 6 areas that Kenya has improved. On electricity reliability, it has a great impact not only for the big businesses because of we've all talked about reliability when we have all the blackouts, what the impact that has, especially for factories when they have to switch on to generators and the cost to of the products after that. But what about the barber or the saloonist or the small welder? What this really means is that they can keep running their business throughout the day without the interruptions that makes them close. They don't have the money to get generators and all that. But now, with more reliability of electricity, then their businesses don't have to close on a regular basis. On the starting of the ease of starting business, again for the small person, the entrepreneur, there's a big push of entrepreneurship in this country, but you can't be an entrepreneur unless you have a registered business. And so easing that process really means that we're going to have many more businesses starting up. We've been talking about startups, and again, that really is a good news for startups. So these are people without a lot of money. These are maybe the students who are leaving college and want to start a small business, and now they don't have to go through the hurdles that they'd have had to go through over the years. So I just wanted to point that out. So because many times we ask, okay, this benefits the big business, but what about the small businesses? And this is what it really means for the small business. But even to the public, you know, when there's reliability of electricity, again, we may be pushing this because it's good for business, but it's good for you and I when you don't have to have the blackouts at home. You know, what does that mean for us who have, you know, and you're having to, it's in the evening and you need to cook, or children need to do their homework, and there's power throughout the evening. So again, these are the benefits that we are seeing. So it has a ripple, there are multiple effects when there's improvement around this. iTax, when today you don't have to go and line up in KRA, you don't have to ask for timeout to go and stand in KRA and file up your taxes, because you can now do it online. That saves time for the employer because the employees don't have to leave work, but also for the employee or yourself who has a small business and having to close to go and line up. So you have to think about the multiple impact of these changes. And so for us, this is excellent, not only for the big investors who are looking to invest in the country, but for you and I who want to do our businesses every day, or for the business person who has employees and knows that they can keep them in office, because a lot of these things are now easy to do.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think it's fair to say that these reforms are a continuous improvement process. It is something that we continue to build on. Some are measured by World Bank, others are not. We get a lot of feedback from our business community, both small, medium, big, large, in making sure that the environment is conducive in supporting their business growth. And what the World Bank does is to measure this globally by ranking countries against one another. It may not be perfect, but it's a good indicator. An investor who is sitting somewhere in Albania who wants to invest in Kenya, their first port of call naturally is to see, well, where do I go to invest in Africa? And what does it say? So this is an independent, objective, peer comparison document that happens, and we are very excited. I think out of 54 countries on the continent, we are today number 3 in sub-Saharan Africa, significant improvement year on year, and that is something that we believe and are confident will translate into efficiency, improvement in processes for our business community. We continue to do this. This is an annual exercise. Our improvement starts today for next year. Where did we not do well, and what can we see how we can work on, with full engagement of the private sector. You see KEPSA here, but the Chamber is also very actively involved in this. And our target, as I mentioned in closing, is we would like to be in the top 50 countries in the world in the next couple of years. And we put that agenda and target 3 years ago, and I'm very pleased that we are well on track to achieve that in the next couple of years. So let me just pause there and open up for questions that might be on your mind. And by the way, 2 things I just want to say is we will be sharing with you a press release that gives a bit more detail on some of the things that we talked about. But you will also go to the website of the World Bank, where this report has been downloaded, can be downloaded, and more details on a country-by-country basis is available. So who wants to go first? Yes, sir.
Dan Mondi, NTV. A few questions. First, the question that keeps coming up is we usually have this nice report that gives a very nice picture of the country's performance, but we don't see the correlation.
All right, there you have it. The World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. I'm just going to get those figures again. Kenya has jumped up to position 80 from 92. So interesting, even at a time of, political uncertainty, perhaps one positive note in terms of business and possibly the economy. We're taking a break on Citizen X Show. We're back with our discussion after this. Please stay with us. Oops, sorry.